building up the world. I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
Shine all around the world.
Shine all around the world. I'm gonna let it shine, shine all around the world. I'm gonna let it shine, shine all around the world. I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
Awesome. Who's awake now? I'm awake. That was fantastic. Amy and the Markus Grae Hauck Band. Markus Grae Hauck All-Star Band. Whoever you are, wherever you come from, whatever age, identity, history, gender, sexual orientation, you are welcome to bring your full self here. I'm Reverend Anya Samler-Michael. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. Grounded in faith, we come together to nurture the soul, inspire hope, and bring into being a more just and loving world. Today's service is titled Our Possible Pasts. Reverend Scott will lead us on a reflection about memory, exploring how we often get bogged down worrying about the way things might have been. And even though we may have good reasons for regret, at some point we must live the life before us. We will also examine how to be gentle and kind with ourselves, no matter the mistakes we have made. Our COVID protocols include social distancing and that we will be masked and vaxxed. We welcome all and realize that there's not a vaccine available for children under 12, so we have established some safe, special spaces in our sanctuary for families with young children. And we have restricted congregational singing, asking instead that we hum along while our hymn leaders sing. Now that was really tough for this little light of mine, wasn't it? I had to keep stopping myself as we went. Please join us this Saturday at 7 p.m. Is it 7 p.m. for the concert, Markus? 7 p.m. for a special concert live right here and live streamed with our own Julia Crafton and renowned New Orleans musicians Cindy Scott and Brian Seeger. It is going to be amazing. And please see your This Week at UUCM bulletin for other important information. Ours is a covenantal community. This means that while we do not share common beliefs, we share a common covenant, a commitment to come together in service of the beloved community. And today we have the opportunity to covenant with our council on ministries to learn about what they do while we promise to hold one another accountable in service to our congregation.
Stand so that we can covenant with you. And will those joining us virtually please announce your presence in the chat? And will our council members who are presenting, Chair Deborah Corbett and Nicole Grae, please come forward.
And this microphone is not working, so you're going to come right over here. And Nicole, this way.
We understand this purpose as sacred and commit to it here before you, our beloved congregation.
Thank you.
The council members, in addition to me, are John Carlton, Ray Dumont, Elaine Gibson, Nicole Grae, and Dan Silver. And our ministers are also members. We covenant with you, congregation, to uphold our mission and help to ensure that we stretch towards our vision. And this year especially, we will work with you to ensure that our ministries live into the 8th principle of Unitarian Universalism.
We covenant to affirm and promote journeying towards spiritual wholeness by working to build a diverse, multicultural, beloved community by our actions that accountably dismantle racism and other oppressions in ourselves and our institutions.
And then it's me. So, will the council members affirm your commitment to this work by repeating these words after me? This we affirm.
This we affirm.
This we affirm.
This we will do.
This
This
we will do.
Now, dear congregation, hearing this commitment, we welcome your celebration of these dedicated leaders.
It's an incredible council. Thank you for your service. Now we light our chalice with our chalice lighting affirmation. Let us open our senses to take in the beauty. Let us open our minds to learn what is true. And let us open our hearts to love one another. I'm still Reverend Anya Samler-Michael, and I'm joined today by Reverend Scott and Amy Brabson to tell our time for all ages. This is called The Answer Mountain. And I haven't introduced this guy behind us because he's actually the mountain. This story is by Sarah E. Skier, used with permission. The story appears in What If Nobody Forgave? Long ago, and far away, or yesterday, and right around the corner, there was a town that sat quiet and content, tucked into the shadow of Waktun Mountain. And carved on the side of the mountain were the words, "The answer is no." No one knew where the words came from or why they were there. They'd just always been there. But oh my goodness, the people who lived in that town were glad to have those words there, because whenever they had a question, all they had to do was look up to the mountain and read it. The answer was always no. Making decisions was very simple until one day when Amy Brabson couldn't decide what to make for dinner. So she went out into the yard, looked up at the mountain, and asked,
"Should I make pasta for dinner?"
And the mountain said,
No.
All right, I knew that really, but should maybe I make potato dumplings for dinner? Should I make donuts? Should I make tacos or tofu, baked beans or broccoli, pork chops or popcorn?
So the mountain just kept saying, "The answer is no." And Amy asked more questions until the sun disappeared behind the mountain. She kept on asking questions until the sun came up around the other way, and all the mountain ever said was, "The answer is
No.
Why is the answer always no? Why can't you just say yes for once?
Amy turned around and stomped away to ring the town bell and call a town meeting. When they had gathered, she said,
"Seems to me that we have got a problem. That mountain just isn't helping us like it should. It would be nice if it would say yes for a while."
The townsfolk, they knew Amy had a point, but they didn't much like the idea of changing something that had been the same for so long. But Reverend Scott, the stone carver, nodded along with the rest of them, adjusted his cap, and said,
Looks to me like I could do the carving if that's all right with all of you.
And so it was Reverend Scott who spent the next 2 weeks up on the side of the mountain, chiseling and chipping and carving away. And when he was done, the mountain said, "The answer is yes." Amy, who had started all of this, came right up to the front of the crowd and asked,
"Should I make liver for dinner tonight?"
and the mountain said, "The answer is..." Well, now Amy almost fell over with surprise.
"Should I really serve liver?"
And the mountain said, the townspeople began to grumble. They didn't really like the sound of this. Amy's family grumbled the loudest.
But, well, I can't. Who likes liver?
And the mountain said, "The answer is..."
This just isn't right. This just can't be right. What are we going to do?
Once again, the townsfolk put on their thinking caps. Everyone thought and thought. Finally, the smallest one of the Grae Hauck kids piped up.
Wait a minute. Why does it have to be just one answer? Why can't there be more?
The townspeople gasped. No one had ever thought of such a thing before. Finally, they decided that the mountain ought to say, "The answer is sometimes yes, and sometimes no, and sometimes wait and see, and sometimes I just don't know."
Well, I think I can carve that. I don't mind, but it's going to take a really long time.
And so it did. And for a while, the townspeople eagerly waited to see the new answer, but soon the stonemason got tired of climbing the mountain every day, and everyone else got really tired of waiting, and they all started asking each other questions and helping each other find answers that seemed to fit. The townspeople realized that different questions usually had different answers, that sometimes the same question had more than one answer, especially among a bunch of Unitarian Universalists, and that there were many more answers than they had ever imagined. After a while, they thought that maybe the answer the mountain was giving them right then, just as it was better and more sensible than any other answer it had given, and so they left it as it was. And the mountain said, "The answer is under construction." And we, the townspeople, are the builders of those answers. May it be so. Called to find depth in our days and discover reverence in this hour, and perhaps to find answers to those questions that have been resting heavily with us. We seek a gentle meditation, a focused reflection, an ardent prayer, each as we are called, and yet all together. And we enter into this space by hearing the lamentations, the requests, and the remembrances of our community. Let us hear one another to heal one another. Norma Tassi lights this candle and shares. Appreciation, thankfulness, gratitude does not begin to cover what is in my heart. This congregation and its extraordinary leaders have shown me love, support, and kindness as I navigate the shattering loss of my beloved son, Jordan. 6 months ago, his life was cut tragically short by COVID-19. He was the light in my eyes and the love in my heart. As I face the next chapter in my life, knowing that I am a part of such a community as this gives me a large measure of comfort. Norma, this light shines for you, and it shines for Jordan. We light this next candle for Jacqueline Puleo. Jacqueline, our office administrator, has been in the emergency room this week, just in an outpatient procedure, but still very painful. And she's home now, recovering. We light this next candle for the people affected, killed, maimed, and traumatized by the mass shooting in Memphis, Tennessee. May we see our way to living for one another, not against one another. And we light this final candle for the joys and sorrows that are deeply felt but have not been spoken aloud. May we hold this silence as this silence holds us. God of our understanding, Spirit of life and love, whichever name we choose, guide us into a space of prayer, a place for speaking our affirmations, confronting our limitations, asking our questions, and holding this blessed, imperfect life with our tender souls and hands. The poet Rumi shares this: your task is not to seek for love, but merely to seek and find all the barriers within yourself that you have built against it. Help us in these days of challenge and transformation to find those barriers within ourselves that keep out what would serve, heal, even salve us. Help us to find that fear, those questions we have about our limitations. Help us to find those and shake them until they fall from our hands to the ground of our being, so that we may reach out fully with love to those around us, to ourselves, and to the holy of our understanding. Help us to move through these days of challenge so that we are caring for those near and far who are experiencing the most tender of times. Help us to be caretakers with the energy that we have, and help us to caretake ourselves when we have no more energy to give. We know these are challenging times. May we also know that we're in them together. May peace move within you, among you, and between you. Amen. Our prayer response: there's honey in the rock.
There's honey in the rock for all God's children. Honey in the rock, honey in the rock. There's honey in the rock for all God's children. Feed every child of God. One of these days about 12 o'clock, feed every child of God. This whole world's gonna reel and rock. Feed every child of God. There's honey in the rock for all God's children. Honey in the rock, honey in the rock. There's honey in the rock for all God's children. Feed every child of God. We can have justice if we care. Feed every child of God. Child of God. There's honey in the rock for all God's children. Honey in the rock, honey in the rock. There's honey in the rock for all God's children. Feed every child of God. Heart to heart and hand to hand. Feed every child of God. You to the promised land. Feed every child of God. There's honey in the rock for all God's children. Honey in the rock, honey in the rock. There's honey in the rock for all God's children. Feed every child of God. If chains hold us down, we gotta break the lock. Feed every child of God. Then we'll taste sweet honey in the rock. Feed every child of God. There's honey in the rock for all God's children. Honey in the rock, honey in the rock. There's honey in the rock for all God's children. Feed every child of God. Honey in the rock for all God's children. Honey in the rock, honey in the rock. There's honey in the rock for all God's children. Feed every child of God.
Ushers, please come forward. There is indeed honey in the rock when we share our blessings. 80% of what you offer will care for our congregation, and the rest supports our August and September recipient, Isaiah House. Located in East Orange, Isaiah House reduces the occurrence of homelessness and hunger with community programs. Shelter programs serve youth, disabled individuals, those living with AIDS, and more. Over 60% of the families served have relocated to permanent housing. You can text 73256 to give, mail us a check with Isaiah House in the memo, or simply place your gift in the offering basket. All of your gifts are worthy, and they are all received with love.
Our reading today comes from Michael Dumanis. Michael Dumanis was born in Moscow in 1976. Today he lives in Brooklyn and teaches at Bennington College. Today's reading comes from his poem, Nebraska. As far as I can tell, there's nothing trustworthy about my experience of reality. I stand on one leg, I stand on the other. I rotate my arms clockwise and call this exercise. In the home movie, I recognize my coat. Taking my turn with the mechanical bull at Uncle Ron's Wild West Saloon, I hold on for as long as a minute. So little happens on a given day, which is why I play the accordion, until I am riddled with someone's applause, which is why I drive to Arthur County to see the hay bale church and the world's smallest courthouse. If I was a blue jay or some kind of robin, I would fly figure eights over the cottonwoods. Despite the wind, I would not curse the wind. The future is a rumor like the past. The new anxiety supplants the old anxiety. The continent I stand my ground on drifts, which is why I've asked you to marry me. I am solid gold, I say, and I am capable of loving you until the final asteroid hides Omaha under an ocean of ash. We are all so lucky. It is terrifying. It is a blue sky day for all the freezingness. I blink into the chasm of sunlight endlessly. I forget my life, but then I remember my life.
Left a good job in the city, working for the man every night and day, and I never lost 1 minute of sleeping, worrying about the way things might have been. Big wheel keep on turning, proud Mary keep on burning, and we're rolling, rolling, yeah, rolling on the river. Say we're rolling, rolling, yeah, yeah, rolling on the river. Left a good job in the city, working for the man every night and day, and I never lost 1 minute of sleeping, worrying about the way things might have been. Big wheel keep on turning, proud Mary keep on burning, rolling, rolling, rolling on the river. Get up, do, 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 do. cleaned a lot of plates in Memphis, pumped a lot of tank down in New Orleans, but I never saw the good side of the city till I hitched a ride on the riverboat Queen. Big wheel keep on turning, Proud Mary keep on burning. So we're rolling, rolling, rolling on the river. Get up, do, 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 do. If you come down to the river, bet you're gonna find some people who live. You don't have to worry, 'cause you got no money. People on the river are happy to give. Big wheel keep on turning, Proud Mary keep on burning. So we're rolling, rolling, rolling on the river. We're rolling, rolling, rolling on the river. Get up, do, do.
Amy Brabson.
Amy Brabson might not know what to make for dinner, but she sure knows how to sing.
Well, I wasn't sure when I was going to Baptist Sunday School in 1975 we would do that one on Sunday morning. But boy, am I glad we did. Thank you all for that. I never lost a minute of sleeping worrying about the way things might have been, says the song. My guess is that not everybody lets things roll off their backs that easily. Rolling down the river of memory, we cling on to lots of things, do we not? But another experience of how we reckon with the past is shared by another song, another rock song. They flutter behind us, our possible pasts. Our possible pasts are what we imagine when we reflect upon our journeys as individuals, as a congregation, as a nation, all the while imagining, if only I had done this, or if only I had not done that. Yes, of course, it's a good practice to reflect on who we are, what we have done, and how we could have done better. Such reflection exercises our moral reasoning. It helps keep us from repeating the same old mistakes. It teaches us for what and to whom we should atone. But those possible paths that flutter through our minds, needling us into discomfort, they sometimes occupy way more time and space than is helpful, do they not? They too often construct a maze in which we lose ourselves. Here are some episodes from my life that bring up possible pasts for me. What if I could have put up with that bully technical director and pursued a career in stage lighting? I was working in Equity Summer Stock Theater on Maryland's Eastern Shore at age 22, and my technical director boss was one of the cruelest people I have ever met. The way he treated me and the other employees, I wasn't about to put up with. And the owner refused to support me when I stood up to this guy, so I quit. I could have been on my way to working on the New York stage. Woulda, coulda, shoulda. Then there was the time I chose not to join my friend Chris in California. Now, I then, in 1988 and today, knew nothing about computers. But he founded a startup in Silicon Valley, and he called me up. I was 26 to be a project manager. And when I told him, I don't know anything about computers or peripheral hardware or whatever it is you want me to project manage, And he said, yeah, but you're willing to work as hard as it takes to get things done. Well, I wasn't interested and still not. 2 years later, the startup was sold and Chris's share was $2.5 million. What if I had said yes? Well, as today's Time for All Ages taught us, the answer is under construction. How they flutter behind us, our possible pasts. People ponder possible pasts, not just for themselves, but also even for their country, yes? Consider some of these possible pasts for the United States. How would things be different if after 9/11 we never invaded Iraq? Or consider this one. In 1776, many Americans believed we had a chance to craft a nation that did not include slavery. Many Northerners already were openly opposed to slavery. Many Southerners recognized that a nation taking arms to become free might be cursed if all people were not made free. Indeed, George Mason, a Virginia slave owner, writes of sleepless nights throughout the Revolutionary War as he imagined the full moral depravity of slavery in a nation that allows it. After the war, Mason begged Washington and Jefferson to not permit slavery in the new republic, or to at least enshrine an ending date for slavery. But as we know, this possible past is simply a dream. And the nation they built brought decades of nightmares for non-white peoples in our nation, decades of unholy, soul-polluting myths of supremacy to white hearts. Because the work of unraveling quagmires of injustice is so daunting, so difficult, usually generational in scope, we get drawn towards despair when we have these reflections reminiscing about our possible pasts. We forget how intractable are so many of our social ills. We forget that justice-making is always an orientation of being, a protracted struggle. And oh, our possible pasts. Yes, we should examine where we've been and why. We should admit and atone for our transgressions, learn more from our mistakes, dedicate ourselves to not causing more energy. And we should also resist romanticizing what could have been, if only. We get lost turning the events over and over, imagining our possible pasts, in part because we forget how difficult the choices were in those moments. Imagining the world to be much more simple than it truly is. Neuroscience and psychology both teach that the human mind, for all its gifts, it resists complexity. We long for things and for life itself to be easier, simpler in our minds, especially in times of trial and stress. Our minds present the options before us as much more simplistic than they actually are. This is true whether we're regarding the present, the future, or the past. Not only our memories, but so many of humanity's challenges derives from how we oversimplify our understanding of the world, and we cling to easy answers, to either-or thinking where none exists. And is this not even more so when we are imagining choices that other people made, especially those who have harmed us or caused us trouble? They should have known, right? Try some of these recent possible pasts on for size. What if COVID never happened? What if some wise soul predicted COVID and prepared a vaccine 5 years ago? What if people didn't believe in conspiracy theories? What if our democracy actually guaranteed majority rule? What if? They flutter behind us, our possible pasts. hope as we might, it is not so simple. We must court and be comfortable with complexity. In Requiem for a Nun, novelist William Faulkner famously says, "The past is never dead. It isn't even past." And this is a caution, reminding how hard it can be to move beyond what we have known and experienced, what we have served, and we treat that past, or our vision of it, the movie of our past that we play to ourselves, we treat it as if it were gospel. The lore of the familiar and the known, it dovetails with our desire for easy answers, for control, and we end up accepting the world as it was handed to us instead of transforming it. English philosopher John Bennett teaches the past is part of our habit of thinking. It's that place where we make the movie of our lives in our minds. He cautions us to dispense with the automatic responses that present themselves to us as the way things must be or have always been. The only way we break free from the chains of the past is to intentionally disengage ourselves from habits, from automatic thinking. Original creative work happens only when we transcend habit and nostalgia and risk new ways of being. COVID provides a chance to challenge our assumptions, yes, to break old habits and realize they may not serve us anymore if they ever did at all. Over the last 18 months, our congregation has had no choice but to change its habits of how we work, how we meet, what we do. Amidst the changes wrought by COVID, we notice how much, however, folks still long, yearn, even pine for the way things were. Take us back to normal, please.
Take us back to normal, please.
This is so understandable. What was it you said a few months ago? I don't remember anything before COVID. And what we're going through is indeed a little slice of hell. And when it is over, when we realize COVID is the deadliest event in U.S. history, we will understand why we wanted it to be over and to move on. Indeed, we believe that we recall how things were BC or before COVID. But memory is very tricky. I wonder, was the past really so good? Weren't we suffering then? Weren't many suffering then? Didn't we need greater justice then? Weren't some of our programs here in need of renewal or replacement? Too many long to snap us back to an old normal way of being, frankly, that may not have been working as well as we remember. Possible pasts make us cherish things that perhaps should be left behind. By forcing us to do things differently, COVID has brought the gift of evaluating who we are and what we do. We see this in how many people who have left jobs aren't in a hurry to go back to them. And here, during COVID, UU Montclair has reevaluated how we worship, how we provide religious education for our children, how we manage our building even. We have reconsidered thoroughly what it means to form beloved community. We realized for worship that we would need more microphones and lights because we're live streaming. We realized for children's religious education that delivering our content would look very different than before. And that indeed, as we emerge and begin our religious education program in 2 weeks, we will be focusing on care and connection. We realized managing the building would require all of us to share in the ministry of technology and the ministry of safety when we gather here. Whether it's with gloves, masks, air purifiers, limiting food and beverages, keeping the building in good working order and secure, getting trained to serve in our tech team. What will our community look and feel like on the other side of COVID? Well, the answer is always under construction. COVID also catalyzed a new way of being. It shoved us beyond automatic thinking and inspiring hope in at least one important and I think very positive way. And I'm referring to the national response to the murder of George Floyd. Locked down at home by mandate, Americans could not avoid the terrifying video of a black man slowly murdered by racist police. And people took to the streets last summer in what is now acknowledged as the largest turnout for racial justice in American history. Many marching for that issue for the first time in their lives, especially many white folks. Other groups in our society continue to aid this awakening, and some of them are not the groups you might think. For instance, professional sports leagues have been particularly visible in this new messaging. The National Basketball Association led the way with slogans on jerseys, pledges to fund racial justice groups, and opening its arenas as large voting centers. Hockey and Major League Baseball made meaningful gestures, and despite its actual past, the National Football League chose to be part of a racially conscious future. This year, in the end zone of every NFL stadium, one side says end racism, and the other side says it takes all of us. This is new. They used to tell players to stand up and not make any gestures, right? This was just 2 years ago. Players were being shamed for standing up for their rights. Even their helmets have racial justice slogans. So in every televised image, a message of racial justice is included. Perhaps the pandemic has moved some away from perpetuating a sticky, racist past. Oh, our possible pasts. Honesty with ourselves about what we've done, what we might be capable of doing, and how we're going to be better. These are signs of spiritual maturity. We pray that this house of worship is a place you can find and express that honesty. And we also pray that in the quiet hours of your moral reckoning, even during the public lament of your missing the mark, that we also remember to love ourselves. That we do not turn self-examination into self-loathing. We are all guilty, yes, of things for which we should repent. But when we atone and confess our misdeeds, there must also come redemption, renewal, and restoration. The Universalist theologian Hosea Ballou has much to teach us about regret and redemption. In his 1805 treatise on atonement, this was the first great work of theology by a European American. Hosea Ballou flips the script on how most folks normally think about moral reckoning. As a Universalist, Ballou claims that there is no Satan, no cosmic source of evil battling with us. He calls those colorful tales of Genesis figurative. They are metaphors meant to teach and instruct, not actual incident reports from ancient times. And assisting us with how to reconcile our possible pasts, Jose Ballou teaches we are bound to make mistakes because we never can know all the results of our actions. Ballou claims that since God created humankind as finite, with limited wisdom, we are unable to always choose what is good for us or for our world. And because of that, we create much of our own misery. And when we create our own misery, since we are inherently good and moral creatures, Ballou teaches that when we see we caused misery, we can get angry with God for not showing us how our decisions would cause pain in the future. Humanity needs to be reconciled to the divine, says Ballou. This is the opposite of Orthodox Christian theology, and it is the beginning of liberation. This is primary for Ballou's universalism. Our transgressions are made by our finite self with limited knowledge, so therefore our sins would never result in infinite punishment. We are thereby reunited with divinity at death because, as Ballou says, God knows we are limited and imperfect and will be troubled by the results of our own actions. So whatever any of us believes about what happens after death, Ballou offers a rationale to be gentle with ourselves when evaluating our possible pasts and transgressions or those missed chances, the way things might have been. Our possible pasts flutter about us because we know more now than we did then. We ponder our possible past because we care, because we want to be good, we want to be better, we want to do the morally correct thing. So we examine ourselves with microscopic focus because we need to demonstrate to ourselves and to the holy that we can be honest about the negative impact we have caused. But those who look back in courage and in truth and in compassion and love, they are the lifeblood of transformation and beloved community. They are upholders of the social contract. They are loyal citizens dedicated to something grander than appetite, power, or greed. And I see many people like that before me right now among you. You good people show your moral resilience and your compassion when you play with the tales of your possible pasts. Just remember, when you're done with that reflection, love yourself. Be gentle on yourself. Bring your energy into the present to be your best self now. May it be so. Will you reflect with me? How can you be gentle and loving with yourself when you reflect on and learn from your possible pasts? Our closing song is 158, Praise the Source of Faith and Learning.
Praise the source of faith and learning that has sparked and stoked the mind with the wisdom we acknowledge that our science and our art and the breadth of human knowledge only partial truth impart. Far beyond our calculation lies a depth we cannot sound, where the purpose for creation and the pulse of life are found. Praise for minds to probe the heavens, praise for strength to breathe the air, praise for all that beauty leavens, praise for silence, music, prayer, praise for justice and compassion, and for strangers, neighbors, friends, praise for hearts and lips to fashion, praise for love that never ends.
When shall we learn that we are born in and from the world, to suffer with it and by it, day by day? Some of the suffering comes when we seek answers from our possible pasts. Those answers that are always under construction. Far beyond our calculation lies a depth we cannot sound. We forget our lives, and then we remember our lives. So in that remembering, after we learn our lessons and transform and confess and atone, let us fashion praise for the love that never ends, and be gentle and loving, especially with yourselves. Amen.
Our worship has ended. Let our service begin. Go in peace. Go in love. Go in joy.
It's been such a joy to share worship with you. We will gather outside on the front lawn to greet everyone. It's a beautiful day out there. And let's celebrate our tech team who has done a great job bringing this service virtual. See you outside.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. this little light of mine. I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
You're the only guitarist I know who, as he goes on, gets softer. Oh, good job, y'all. Well done. Thank you all. Yeah, I very earnestly tried to talk Reverend Scott out of opening him, and he... Huh? Yeah. I was like, look, it's a poem that takes like 4 times to read before you can even understand it. Like, no, it's super clear. It's so cerebral. Yeah. All right. Thanks, Mike.